I'd like now to introduce the only Vietnam veteran in our congressional delegation, U.S. Senator Tom Carper.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. A big thank you to Dave Skocik. He does so much work. To the Levy Court, to Joe Star, to the Chapter 850 Vietnam veterans, our Gold Star families, our fellow veterans, all the veterans that are here today. I have said these words probably 1,000 times or more. When I run into Vietnam veterans, and the words that I say are welcome home. And as beautiful as this monument is, what's even more beautiful is the presence of each of you here today. You have no idea how much it means to me, and I'm sure to every other Vietnam veteran who is within the sound of my voice that you're here. And I just want to ask you to say those two words with me, if you will, to our Vietnam veterans: welcome home. Welcome home. How about another time? One more time. Welcome home. Others have talked about how unpopular a war it was that we served in. Tough time for our country. Tough time, I'm sure, for the folks in North and South Vietnam as well. I served on active duty from 68 to 73 and a number of years after that in the reserves. My job was to fly on an AVP-3 airplane. I wasn't a hero like some of these guys. But our job was to fly low-level missions off the coast of Vietnam and Cambodia to try to catch the little junks, little fishing boats, trawlers trying to get in, resupply the Viet Cong. And had an opportunity to go back to Vietnam in 1991. I was a congressman then, and I took with me 5 other Vietnam veterans who also served with me in the Congress. We included our numbers Pete Peterson. Where's John knows Pete Peterson, who congressman from Florida, who also was a POW for 5 or 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton. We flew into Vietnam. This was a time when there were a lot of Vietnam veterans. If you look through the program that we have here today, and you'll notice along with the descriptions of the lives of the 26 men whose deaths we commemorate and memorialize today with this monument. One of them, Donald Russell Hoskins, his body was never recovered. As it turns out, over 50,000 men and women died in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War, and over 2,000 or 3,000, we just never recovered the bodies, we never recovered the remains. And there are a lot of people who fought in this country that there were a number of Americans who were left behind, MIAs, and they were being held by the Vietnamese, or by somebody in Laos, or someone in Cambodia. And you may recall at a time in our history there were front cover articles, Time, Newsweek. They had photographs of the men who were allegedly being held, our men, held in captivity secretly someplace in Vietnam or Cambodia or Laos. Did anybody remember those? Well, I sure do. I sure do. And I led a group of 6 congressmen to go back, all Vietnam veterans, to go over there and try to find out what really happened. What really happened to our men. We weren't getting much cooperation from the Vietnamese or the Cambodians or the Laotians. We frankly weren't getting a really good job out of our own people to find out the truth. And we ended up in Phnom Penh, capital of Cambodia. We literally happened to be there the very week that this ring was uncovered, and we found out that there was a bunch of Cambodians who were using pictures of the Soviet versions of Time and Newsweek, dumbing them up, and using them as a way to try to get money out of the families of those whose sons were fathers, uncles were missing. We happened to be there literally the week that happened. We flew into Vietnam the week that they had their National Communist Party, if you will, convention. And they had elected a new first secretary, a guy named Demoy. And we had hoped to have a chance to meet with him to personally plead that they would open up their countryside to us, to allow our people to go at a moment's notice to go and explore sites. If we had rumors or reports that people had been sighted, possibly Americans, that we could go there and find out, really to find out the truth. We hoped to meet with First Secretary Demoy. He could not meet with us when we came in. We ended up, we're up and down in Vietnam, into Cambodia, and then over to Laos. And we flew back down into Saigon, and we're about to get on our planes and head back to the States. It's been quite a 10-day period, but we still hadn't met with Des Moines. And we got a phone call from Hanoi that he was able to meet with us literally later that day. And if we would fly our plane up to Hanoi, we could meet with him before we headed for home. Boy, in a minute we said, we'll do that. And we got on our plane, flew on up in Atlanta, Illinois. They took us to a place to meet with a beautiful home. Beautiful home. And took us to a large room, a lovely room. And the six of us sat and waited. And we sat sort of on one side of the room, and he came in. And came in with an interpreter. We had an interpreter. No press, nothing at all. And he came over, he shook hands with everyone. He sat down and we sat down, sort of facing each other, kind of like I am with this group here in the front row. And part of my job was the leader of the delegation was to introduce everybody in our delegation to him and give him a little bit of background. And I knew that Des Moines, when he'd served in the French Indochina War as a soldier. He'd been shot, he'd been wounded. I knew that he had actually, at one time or another, he'd actually painted houses. I knew he'd been an educator, a teacher, and now he's a leader of that country. So it turns out Wayne Gilchrist, former congressman from the 1st District over here in Maryland, who was with us, Purple Heart winner, Bronze Star winner. Wayne also had been served in the military, shot, wounded, had been a house painter, had been an educator, now served as a leader in our Congress. And when I introduced Wayne to Secretary Des Moines, I told him all of those things. I said, like you, Mr. Secretary, shot and wounded in the battle for his country. Like you, Mr. Secretary, he painted houses. Like you, Mr. Secretary, he was an educator. Like you, Mr. Secretary, he's now a leader of our country as you are a leader of this country. And with those words out of my mouth, Secretary Des Moines stood up. I stopped. He walked over to where Wayne Gilchrist was sitting. We had these kind of loose-fitting white shirts. He invited him to stand up, and Wayne wasn't really sure what to do. And Des Moines said through his interpreter, he said, show me your wound. Show me your wound. Now Wayne had been shot right over his heart, and the bullet had come out the back of his shoulder, left shoulder. And he wasn't about to stand up, but Des Moines said to him, show me your wound. And finally, almost dragging Wayne, got him to stand up, and he lifted up the white shirt that Wayne was wearing. And as he did, it was unveiled to us who were standing behind him, this horrible, still horrible looking wound, scar. You can still see where the bullet had emerged from his body. And Des Moines took his fingers, and he traced with his fingers the scar. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. And with that, he pulled down Wayne's shirt, and they embraced. I don't care if I live to be 1,000 years old, I will never, ever forget that moment. The job of our delegation was to go over there to get the truth, to find out what happened to our men. But our job was also commissioned by President Bush to start us on a road to reconciliation with Vietnam. Normalization, a game plan. We presented that to the Vietnamese, and lo and behold, Pete Peterson, when I went back in 1998, 7 years later, Pete Peterson, who in 1991 stood in the hotel there, Hanoi Hotel, where he was a pre-OW. He went back in 1998 and I welcomed him, and he welcomed me. He was the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Vietnam, the country with whom we had normal relations. I just want to say to everybody here who's ever served over there, who's ever thought of going back, or maybe wondered whether or not your service was worthwhile, Vietnam today is not our best friend, it's not a robust democracy, but it's a nation. It is a nation with a free enterprise system that has become a friend, strangely enough, a friend of this nation. And for anyone who questions, those who are alive or dead, who questions the value of our service here, question it no more. Question it no more. The sacrifice, the years of service, the separation, the wounds, the death, I think in the end were worthwhile. We didn't lose that war. When we pulled out in 1975, we didn't lose the war. We lost the battle. But my friends, I stand here today with you as we memorialize these 26 to say we have won the war in the battle for the hearts and the minds of the Vietnamese people.